to Smartmatic Meets Inquirer Multimedia. Today we are joined by Eli Moreno, General Manager of Smartmatic Philippines, and Attorney Karen Jimeno, Head of Voter Education. We've had the live demo of the vote counting machine. Now let's open the floor to questions. The first question is from Inquirer's Chief of Day Desk, Michael Lim Ubak.
Yeah, in our experience with the overseas absentee voting, there was a complaint that some votes of senatorial candidate Martin Romualdez went to senatorial candidate Nery Colmenares, and votes for Bongbong Marcos for vice president went to vice presidential candidate Greg Onasan. How do you explain that?
What I can guarantee you is, as you saw during the demonstration, the vote counting machine will count the votes that were shaded. I cannot say what those persons shaded in their ballots, but I can guarantee you that the counting machine will only count the votes that were shaded.
So, I guess to put it in layman's terms, the vote counting machines will run according to its program, and it's programmed to detect the shades. It's not even, the vote counting machines don't even identify the candidates by their names or by the numbers. So here, it's hard to judge what the reasons were for them to say that the voters' receipts don't match what they shaded, because today, what we conducted, we've had 12 ballots go inside the vote counting machines. You've seen for yourselves that whoever you shaded is reflected in the voter's receipt. And if you don't shade for certain people, it's going to show an abstention or an undervote. So, kumbaga, let's say, binigyan lahat tayo, we're all cell phone users. Every time we type a text, it gets sent, the other person receives it as the way you typed it. Or if you send a photo, it's supposed to show the photo that you sent by email or by text. Now, it's hard to say for you to complain suddenly to Apple and say, how come it's not working properly? I sent a photo, it came out a different photo. Apple can tell you, oh, that's because of our program, because they didn't design it that way. So here it's hard to judge whether these reports are true because we have not seen the ballots ourselves. We haven't seen the voter's receipt. But at least one thing we can assure you is that the program is designed in a way that that will never happen. Now, as an added measure, COMELEC has a procedure in place for these people. If they are really true reports that have basis, we will find out, because they have a right to contest and protest. Their signatures will be reflected in the voter's receipt. They will be attached to the minutes for those consulates, for instance, and then they will be investigated. But again, siguro, let's be careful what we believe also.
Yeah, and Smartmatic is saying that SD cards are encrypted. Is there any way that they can be tampered with, these cards?
No, the answer is no. It's simple. The encryption is stronger than the bank encryptions. Usually bank uses 128 bits encryption. We're using 256-bit encryption, which means that it's basically impossible to decrypt it.
I don't know if this is a right, this question should be asked to you. How will the hacking of the COMELEC website affect the voter turnout and perception of security for the votes?
Okay, I'll answer that question, but just to add to the issue of the SD cards being tampered with, people can try. But one, as Ellie pointed out, the encryption is so high that according to experts, conservatively, it will take 50 years for a very good IT professional to hack it. But second, they're also protected. So what's the purpose of the SD card? It's supposed to save the results for each vote counting machine. And that's what you use for also physically transmitting the results. Meaning, apart from the electronic transmission, you can deliver you can deliver the SD card to consolidate and count all the votes. But it's protected with digital signatures, meaning once they close the votes, ika-count niya lahat, di ba, ng total for the vote counting machine na boto. I-encrypt niya to, and then it will attach the digital signatures. And this is yung dito mapupunta yung in-explain ko kanina na yung mga I-buttons na parang susi plus the PIN and passwords of each BEI chairman and member, they are connected to a unique digital signature each. They attach to the electronic results. Think of it as an envelope na merong laman na mga resulta. Yung digital signatures are like stickers that cover the envelope para ma-seal siya, maselyohan. So, pag sinabi ko, Michael, paki-deliver to kay Mr. Neri, if you try to tamper with it, nasisira agad yung stickers sa taas so that when it reaches Mr. Neri, he'll find out you tried to tamper with this or you tampered with it. It's the same with the SD cards. One, it's hard to tamper with, but second, if you even attempt to do so, masisira mo na yung digital signatures so that when you try to use that SD card, the CCS will detect that. CCS yung consolidating and canvassing servers. And they will set that aside for investigation. They won't even use those results. So they will tell the polling center, o compromise yung SD card nyo. So that's why you have two slots there, A and B, main card and backup card. They mirror and they're read-only, meaning hindi pwedeng patungan, hindi pwedeng erase, read-only. So, and then to go to your question, yung hacking, so we've had the COMELEC website being hacked. What's very important here, ano yung key dyan? One, it's online 24 hours a day. That's a key distinction. As you can see, this vote counting machine, we have no internet connection here. It's not connected to the internet. It's standalone. That's how it's meant to work. And again, yung COMELEC website natin, wala siya yung mga security features that are as high as this vote counting machine. This is heavily encrypted. Stronger pa nga than what banking programs use, wherein we entrust a lot of our money. But apart from that, when it goes online to transmit the results, that's only for a few minutes. We had the transmission readiness test just this weekend. It takes only a few minutes, 3 minutes, matagal na yung 5 minutes. And on top of that, the results when it's being transmitted is also encrypted. Ganun din. So you have that 3-minute window, kailangan magaling ka, yung 50 years, kaya mo bang gawin in 3 minutes? And again, while it's being transmitted, it's protected with the digital signature. So if you try to tamper with those results while it's being transmitted, it also breaks the digital signatures. Again, it's not accepted by the server. So many layers of security, parang pang Mission Impossible movie. And again, ito pang isang dagdag. Yung ginagamit nila for transmitting na internet, it's a virtual private network. So hindi siya pareho ng ginagalawan nating network. It's not the same that we're using for our phones, for our computers in the office or at home. It's a dedicated network that's only for transmitting the results. So, para kayo nagmamaneho sa highway na gusto nyo makidrive dun sa kabilang highway kasi walang traffic doon, but you can't get there because may malaking wall or pader na nakaharang.
What about the perceptions after the hacking of the website?
So, I was hoping that that's impliedly answered by my answer with respect to the security of the system, but we do realize that there were so many doubts cast on the security of the system because of the whole hacking incident and the lack of understanding with how the system works. And that's why we really think that what Inquirer is doing right now is a favor to the voters, to the public, for them to understand what's going to happen and what's the difference. I think that it is a cause for concern in terms of the data leak, but that's completely independent from the elections and our election system. So please don't be discouraged from voting. You will have still very secure elections. Your votes will be counted properly because they are independent from the COMELEC website. And now, COMELEC and I understand the NBI as well are all working very hard together to make sure that the data will not be used against the Filipino voters. And they are very actively going after the hackers. We've already had an arrest, and the penalties are serious. You go to prison for at least 6 years. So.
You mentioned the CCS, consolidating and canvassing servers. These are completely different from the servers that the COMELEC website uses.
Yeah, basically how the system is designed in the Philippines is that each municipality has a laptop. So it also has a consolidation server for their results in the precincts of their municipality. So the VCM will transmit the results to the central system, which is for COMELEC, to the transparency server, which is for KBP, and also to the municipal server, which is the one that is in each municipal board of canvassers. Then, at the end of that process, they will add those results, create the COCs, and forward the results to the next level until it gets up to the upper level, which is the national server, which is in for the Senate and Congress to proclaim the president and vice president.
That system mirrors what's required in our law. Kasi kung gusto natin na sobrang bilis talaga, that's why for those of you who were covering the mock elections and transmission readiness tests, whoever was the representative Inquirer, what you will notice is that the transparency server will get the results faster. Kasi sila, straight from the vote counting machine, tinatransmit sa kanila. So aggregated agad. So let's say, 10 precinct, natapos na agad yung votes because mas konti yung tao doon, papasok agad yun sa central server. But in terms of proclaiming the winner, huwag kayong magulat na, bakit di pa nila pinoproclaim? Alam na namin yung vote for this mayor, halos kompleto na. Because under the law, they are required to undergo several steps to authenticate. So, that's why all of those questions you had na, how can you be sure na hindi matatamper with? The digital signatures, that's their value also. Nasisira siya if someone tries to tamper with it. It goes through a whole process of authentication for the board of canvassers to act also and say, okay, all the results we received are authentic. Therefore, based on sa municipal level, municipal and city level, they will say, okay, all of these are authentic. That's why they will generate the certificate of canvass. And for the positions that are only up to the municipal level, they can proclaim the winner. That's in accordance with the law. But for other positions like province, governor, they will transmit the counts from the precincts at their level and give it to the provincial board of canvassers. Sila naman, pagsasama-samahin nila lahat ng boto sa lahat ng municipality or city under their province. Para sila naman, ganun ulit, authenticate na naman nila, and from there, they can proclaim sinong panalo. That's why Ellie was mentioning all the way up to the national level, because for the positions of senator and party list, it's COMELEC that will act as the National Board of Canvassers. For the whole country, pagsasamahin nila lahat ng boto, they will authenticate, they will proclaim the winner. For President and Vice President, it's Senate and Congress sitting together. Kaya dun sa batasan, meron din silang sarili nilang canvassing process doon.
Okay, next to ask is PDI Senior Reporter Tara Kismundo.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Related to the hacking, to the leak, what can voters do to make sure that when they come forward to the precinct, I mean, there will be no challenges in terms of identifying themselves? Because one of the concerns that was raised because of the leak is identity theft. So, what mechanisms are in place so that you are sure that whoever presents himself to be that person is actually the actual person that's going to vote?
Okay, I'll be candid with you. That's a question that should be addressed to COMELEC, and this is one thing that people should be clear about. Elections day, it's COMELEC running the show. Under the Constitution, it's COMELEC that conducts the elections. So think of it as, imagine a call center company, and you have a supplier where you ordered laptops to be used for you to be a call center. Smartmatic is the supplier. They've delivered all the laptops. They're supposed to run properly. How they're supposed to conduct the call center company is up to their own internal procedures and rules. So, with respect to COMELEC, they have a procedure for identifying the voters. That's why they have the no bio, no boto policy. But again, because the election system is supposed to be separate from the website, they should have their own database that should not have been compromised by the website. That's why they were saying, diba, yung information na kinuha from the website, it's publicly available anyway. They're supposed to generate their own copies na kanila lang, na hindi connected dun sa website. But I think COMELEC, considering that you're asking this, obviously they haven't come out with a clear statement. Now, how does the website hacking affect the voters' identification and registration come election day? And it's good that you asked that because then we can press them to give a clear statement on this. But as an aside, Smartmatic, they have a technology for direct biometrics. In Uganda, this 2016 February, they were, Ellie doesn't know this, I do my own research of their company. But they successfully concluded elections there wherein their technology was used for biometrics. And that's directly from me as a voter with my own fingerprint being detected through a machine to know that you're really that person. Because they also had issues with, in Uganda, flying voters.
There are different technologies that prevents that, but here in the Philippines, what we are providing basically is the vote counting machine. There are other companies actually working with Comelec in the generation of the database, of the biometric database, and the generation also of the voter list that is used during the election. Smartmatic has nothing to do with those processes.
Thank you.
Just
Follow up, please.
just a follow up because I remember in you changed the you had you had to reconfigure the source code for the additional feature of the receipt. So given that, was what challenges did you face in doing that because you had to do it at such a short time, and how do we ensure that there will be no, I mean, there's no room for penetrating the system because you had to do it within such a limited time?
Sure. Actually, we did not have to do any additional source code when when the Supreme Court decision came out. The machine was already configured, and the source code was already configured to work as such. It was just a parameter that in the EMS, which is the election management system, had to be changed. So what we did at that moment was basically we had to recall the machines that had already been programmed because we were already on the pre-logical and accuracy test. We recalled them and we had to reprogram based on that new configuration. But the source code didn't change. We didn't touch anything in the code.
Because I remember at the demonstration at the Supreme Court that one caution was that when you yank the receipt off, it will shut down for 15 minutes. Is it going to be the same?
Well, basically, that's part of the contingency measures that Comelec took, having the scissors. To prevent that from happening, you have the scissors now. So the voters will not basically, and make an error and unintentionally jamming the machine, and that's preventing. And actually, they took several measures. For example, as you saw, the screen review is only 1 second. As you remember, also it was discussed that the election day was going to be very long. No, so what they did is basically trying to short those times to make sure that the election day was not going to be that long. So all preventive measures or contingency measures from Comelec, they have already looked at them, analyzed them, and took a decision on how to act on them.
Thank you. The next question is all the way from Davao. Our Mindanao Bureau Chief, Nico Alconaba, has a question. Hello, Nico.
Yeah. I have two questions. One is, with most parts of Mindanao experiencing rotational brownouts, and even with this families are getting that power supply in election day, how will the machines operate in case of power outage? The second question would be, waiting in line during election days, the burden for the voters, I mean, they're exposed to the elements, ulan, araw, then how fast can you replace the machines that will function?
Sure. Thank you, Nico. I'm not sure if you are looking the live stream, but I will go to the machine to show you something. Right now, each vote counting machine has a battery, okay? And this battery will make it last for 14 hours. If there is a brownout, and let's simulate that in the polling precinct there is a brownout, basically I disconnect the machine from the power supply, and the machine continues working. If you stand up, you will see that the machine is still working because it's connected to its battery. So we're not concerned about brownouts because we have the battery for each vote counting machine. That's the first question. The second question was how fast we can react. In each polling center, Smartmatic will have a technician, okay? So for first, let's say for first support, a technician will be there supporting the BI. If they don't know how to do something specific or if they have a specific problem, they will go and support. In case they cannot fix that problem, they will call to the National Support Center. We set up a call center with more than 600 persons that will be in contact with all those technicians in the field, giving them also support and trying or helping them repair the problems that they have. In case they really consider that it's necessary, the replacement of the machine, more than 5,000 machines will be deployed in all the municipalities, and the election officials from COMELEC will be responsible to bring those machines to the polling center in a fast response way so they can replace it.
Okay, thank you. Next question. We'll get some questions from. Are we ready with questions from social? Okay.
One question coming up.
JV Rufino, Director of Inquirer Mobile.
Okay. Okay, hang on. This is a question in the form of also in a bit of a comment and basically he's asking since we don't have we can't bring back we can't bring home the voters receipt, there's only a small gap for us to check. How sure are we simply to have faith that the results will be accurate, basically? So it's a question sort of comment.
Again, that's a very understandable comment because I think as Filipinos, we have trust issues. In other countries, the purpose of the voter's receipt is only for machines that directly record votes, meaning touchscreen voting, internet-based voting. In other countries, they don't even look for a paper trail. So they vote using their tablets or a touchscreen and then they leave. For us, what we have is a paper-based voting technology, meaning we physically see who we're voting for, and what's automated is only the counting. And for people who want to know how the machines read their votes, it is the voter's receipt that now allows you to give that opportunity to also check how the machines read your receipts. And for this person that's asking the question and making the comment, I hope that he or she was able to see the voting earlier, the ballot testing wherein we had 12 out of 12 say that they personally saw the ballots and the voters' receipts and they all match based on what they shaded. But on top of that, we have a system that's designed in a way wherein you have independent groups that also audit how the machines counted the votes. Again, that's part of the random manual audit, which requires the ballot boxes to be opened, the ballots to be manually counted and checked against the electronic results. Now, if you have a personal stake in the elections and you're contesting how the machines counted your vote, it is part of the process also under the law wherein you can really ask for a manual recount of the ballots. And it has happened in the past. In the past elections, you've had losing candidates asking for that, filing election protests, but none have succeeded on the basis that there was a discrepancy between the ballots and the electronic results. That's why we've never heard of anyone winning an election contest on that basis. So for voters, you know, the issue of not bringing your voter's receipts home should not cast a doubt on how the machines read it because you have the opportunity to review it. And if you're not satisfied, you have the opportunity to object and complain. And the COMELEC will be acting on that as well. But you can't bring it home because there's no added value to that except taking on the risk of vote buying being rampant for these elections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next three questions, Arlene, Aris, and then Gilier. The news director of Raja Inquirer, Arlene de la Cruz.
Hi, ma'am. You made mention of trust issues and conspiracy theories. I was talking to an IT expert from NAMFREL yesterday, and he told me that if should there be an election manipulation or manipulation of the results, it would have to happen from within, meaning an inside job involving Smartmatic and the Commission on Elections. Is there any basis for this conspiracy theory, this angle, from an IT expert from NAMPRO?
Okay. Okay, one, let's look at the whole structure of the way the system runs. From the start, you have a competitive bidding process at selecting suppliers, which means we already know how COMELEC operates. There are 7 people that's appointed not necessarily by the same president. You've had some people carrying over from previous terms. So the possibility of collusion among them is practically zero. And second, that the system is designed in a way where there's no one person that controls everything in the elections. That's why even the IT, the person, the commissioner that's in charge of all the IT-related aspects is also one, but even the whole department does not disclose to him all the information because they're meant to run as a whole group. And then you have a supplier that underwent a competitive bidding process, meaning all the check marks for making sure that that supplier is competent and everything has undergone that process na 2014 pa ha. That's like 2 years before our elections. So you're supposed to be a company with track record internationally, enough capitalization requirements, enough experience, and you can do your own research of Smartmatic, which is what I did as well before agreeing to be their head for voters education. They have a track record for over a decade. If they've done business in 5 continents, in several hundred different countries. They have offices around the world. They've been the supplier even in the United States, where you have Obama using a touchscreen voting machine supplied by Smartmatic. And surprisingly, it's only the Philippines where they've had to deal with a lot of controversies and issues. But that aside, again, that's why I keep emphasizing, and it's not because we're passing the ball on to COMELEC, ha? It's just stating the reality of things. You have COMELEC as the constitutional independent body required to conduct the elections according to the Constitution, according to the Omnibus Election Code. And they chose a supplier to give to them the hardware and software required to run the elections. But what does that mean? It means everything is supplied to them and they reviewed it, they tested it, they even hired a certification agency na hindi related sa Smartmatic to review the software and even the hardware to say that it's going to run properly, walang pandadaya. That's why meron pa tayong pag-deposit ng source code sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So talagang, again, that's why I was saying parang mission impossible because you really have to have a concerted effort where everything will be manipulated from the start. But we've seen that na binuksan na nga yung source code for the public 7 months before the elections. To the public, political parties, election watchdogs, including NAMFREL. So I think that we've taken very much pains in making sure na walang pandadaya, that there's a lot of transparency, and it helps to have a forum like this because I agree. Even as someone that was born in the 80s na wala pang mga computers, takes time getting used to, and with all the movies that we see, it adds to, of course, our imaginations, being creative and thinking of ways, which I admire because we really have to be vigilant against cheating and fraud. But also, what I'm guarding against here would be baseless speculation. So when you hear of news, now that you've seen the machine, how it works, at least be intelligent in the way you criticize or ask questions. And again, of course, we appreciate those comments, but that's why we have a law that has all of those security measures in place and the requirements to make sure that there's no fraud or cheating involved.
You made mention earlier that the system is independent from the hacking that happened in COMELEC. I'm telling you now that there is a second hacker arrested. The
Oh,
second
wow.
hacker.
That's
Just a
another
breaking
update.
news.
Okay. Oh,
One of the things that I personally consider very important is the auditability. Okay,
I'm sorry, which
the
one?
auditability of the
Auditability.
system. The system is audited in several stages. As Karen mentioned, there was a source code review done locally by local experts. There was also a source code review and a hardware review done by an international independent entity. There was a pre-LAD, and the pre-LAD is a pre-logical accuracy test. All of the machines, when they were configured, they were tested using 3 ballots. So let's say like a small election happened already in each one of those machines. They made sure that they are accurate. They voted with 3 votes, they checked the receipt, and they confirmed that everything is okay. Then they move these machines to the precincts, and before the election day, there goes the final testing and sealing. So now all the teachers will do an equivalent process. They will take 10 ballots, they will shade them, they will feed them, they will confirm, as you did today, that the results are accurate, and then they will seal the machine to wait for the election day. Even after the election day, as we mentioned also, you have 30 copies of the ERs. You are sure that your ER as a BI or as a political party, even as a voter, because one of those ERs will be posted in the precinct. So you can take a picture and then you can go to the public side and check, well, in my precinct, I had 200 votes for X candidate. Let me check in the public side if there was actually a 200 votes transmitted there. And you can also audit it from your own perspective in the precinct. So there are several audit measures that are in the system, that are thought to be in the system to prevent anything to happen.
Thank you. The next question is from Aris Hina, multimedia reporter of INQUIRER.net.
Good morning po. Recently, the COMELEC has accepted your donation for the thermal papers and pens, despite the fact that Smartmatic lost in the bidding. COMELEC Commissioner Guanzon said that it constituted graft. So I would like to ask if, do you think Guanzon's comment warranted that is substantiated, and if that donation constituted a conflict of interest between INCOMELEC and Smartmatic?
I think Commissioner Guanzon was referring to the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. But if you look at the definition of what constitutes graft or conflict of interest, it's usually giving a donation, a favor, a gift in relation to a transaction. And that's common sense. What transaction is that? It's something that the other person will gain from. That's why they're giving a gift or donation. That's something that they will make a profit from. And in this case, you already have a contract that was already awarded to Smartmatic in terms of being the technical service provider for supplying the machines that will be used for the elections. And the gift or donation was given in relation to running that elections. In fact, instead of gaining a profit from it, they incurred a loss. And this does not, I think you can check all the past decisions of the Supreme Court, what constitutes an impermissible or illegal gift or donation. And this will not fall under those circumstances. And that's why I think that Commissioner Guanzon was alone, even out of respect for her as a lawyer, she was alone in terms of that decision as opposed to the 6 other commissioners. But on top of that, to understand why Smartmatic made that donation, it had also a lot of logistical sense. One, there was really a high risk of delaying the preparations for the elections. Literally, the operations in the COMELEC warehouse for the testing of the machines will have to be stopped if the machines did not receive the amount of thermal paper required. So that's one. Second, even in Senate, when COMELEC was presenting their timetable for procuring the additional thermal paper, several congressmen and senators were saying, we do not believe that you can get that done within the timeline required, because they had to undergo public bidding. They were warning COMELEC of scenarios wherein certain provinces will not be receiving thermal papers on election day. So that is another challenge. With the donation, you have the thermal papers that are, one, assured that they are of the same quality that you are seeing now. They're meant to run properly with the vote counting machines. They will not be substandard. Second, they can be now properly packed with the vote counting machines, meaning kitted together. There are about 21 rolls required for each vote counting machine. They will be packed along with the vote counting machines before being delivered to each of the polling centers, even to the provinces. And then, of course, lastly, it also made sure that the operations in the warehouse did not stop. So naging tuloy-tuloy. That's why we're within the timetable required. So that's 1.1 million rolls of thermal paper.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would like to add, from not from a legal perspective because I'm not a lawyer, but from a practical perspective, when we heard the plan that Comelec had to buy the papers and send them separately because there was no more time to put them inside of the machine, we also saw a concern and we also saw a risk. And actually, as part of our weekly meetings with Comelec, we meet weekly as part of our best practices to check all the risks. That was part of the risk. What happens if the rolls don't get to the polling center? So in advance, we decided to purchase them. We purchased them, we brought them here, and we had them. And at that time, when the bidding was finalizing, the warehouse didn't have more paper. So we could either wait until the bidding process was finished, or we could give them the paper so they could continue, and that's what we did.
Thank you. If it's all right with you, maybe we can extend for 15 minutes. It's about 12:02. Is that right? So the next question is from Philippine Daily Inquirer editor Gilier.
Can that machine be turned on and off like the old Picos machine? I mean, during the vote count.
It can be turned on and off, yes. You can just take out the electricity and also the battery and turn it off and then turn it on again. You have the battery to ensure that those kind of cases will be non-existent or very minimal. But yes, technically speaking, as any electronic device, you can turn it off.
How will that affect the results?
It will not, because while each voter votes, as Karen was mentioning before, each ballot is taken in the SD cards, is counted in the SD cards, and is also taking an image of that ballot, okay? So if you, and we can do it right away after this exercise, in the middle of the election, if by some reason, that shouldn't happen because you have the battery, but if some reason happens that the machine turns off, when it turned on, it has already all the results there that you previously scanned with the ballots that are in the ballot box. So just to try to simplify the answer to your question, it will not affect.
Thank you. Next question from the chief of our central desk.
Thank you,
Juliet
sir.
Hernan.
Attorney Karen, Mr. Eli. I just want to know about the transmission because in some areas there are no internet connections. So what happens then, and then what are the safeguards, just to make sure that there's no tampering or switching of the contents of the SD card? And the second question is, have you more or less established the schedule for what areas transmit first? Is it Luzon, Visayas, or Mindanao first?
Yeah. In terms of the safeguards, let me go first with the second question, which is probably as part of the process. When the results are, when the ERs are printed, 8 copies are printed, and then they have to transmit the results. What the BIs will do is that they will connect the modem. Remember, it's not through internet. There's another network that is a private network that Globe, Smart, and all the telcos are giving, including telecommunication satellite networks, that will basically transmit those results. So which one is first? All of them at the same time. We're prepared to receive all the results at the same time from all the precincts, okay? Now, of course, it's not exactly at the same time because each precinct will probably finish with some minutes more or less, right? So we will receive all those results. From the precincts that have good signal, of course, it will come faster, and from the precincts that have less signal, it will come, let's say, slower. There is also, as part of the contingency procedure, the BIs will be able to use another modem. Each one of the VCMs that we have determined that in the polling center, there is GPRS connectivity from one of the telephone companies, will have a modem. And they will connect that modem, they will transmit. If they have a problem to do that, they can just borrow the modem of the other precinct that is in the same school and use that modem, okay? Another contingency procedure is that they can take the machine to another room where they know that there is more signal, for example, because it happens to us, right? Sometimes we're talking and we talk here, but then we have to go out for a second because we know that it's going to be better there, right? So they can also do that as part of the procedure. And your first question, how can we make sure that the results are not tampered if they have to move them to the canvassing center? Basically, as part of the contingency procedure, and actually that happened also in 2010 and 2013, all the main SD cards, one of the two SD cards, will be transferred by the BI to the canvassing center, okay, in the municipality. They will transfer it there, and remember that all the information that is in that SD card is encrypted. So even if somebody would try to do something on that SD card, they won't be able to do anything because everything is encrypted there.
And again, the digital signatures get broken if you try to tamper with it. But to add to the transmission, for areas that have very weak or no signal, Smartmatic did a resurvey of those sites that either failed to transmit or had problems with transmission in 2010 and 2013. And those areas will be using Biggins. They're broadband global area networks. They're satellite-based. They're not reliant on our telecoms. So I'm sure a lot of you are relieved to hear that. But so they can transmit from those, and they were tested during the transmission readiness tests, and there were no problems with the Biggins. Ideally, all of the areas would be much better off using Biggins, except that they're very expensive. That's why Comelec had to limit them to
So about how much,
certain areas.
in terms of proportion, about how much of the
There are a total of 4,500 Biggins.
Biggins.
But in terms of giving a proportion, it's hard to say roughly what the exact proportion is of the Biggins as to the SIM cards, meaning those relying on telcos, because Smartmatic proposed that Biggins be increased to really cover all areas that have problems with transmission historically, but they decided to limit the Biggins to 4,500. So they are envisioning a scenario wherein areas will share in the Biggins. Some areas will have to share the Biggins.
Okay, so you said earlier that the transparency server right away posts the results, right? Faster.
Receives.
Okay. So who determines which results to disseminate first to the public? Is it the Comelec or PPCRV, or because you said the machines, just report as soon as the voting is finished. So when they are counted in the Comelec or elsewhere, who determines the sequence of the transmission and the release of the results? Like from what provinces? Do they wait for some provinces before releasing it to the public?
The answer is all of them together. Comelec controls that server and basically gives a copy to the media and to the political parties that are there. I understand it's a city. To be honest, I don't remember precisely the media, but basically, let's say it's a city that contains all the results that up to that moment have been transmitted. And they will be releasing that frequently, okay? I understand that each 20 minutes or 30 minutes, they will be releasing that. In that city, there is the information of all of the results that have been transmitted up to certain time.
And sir, last na lang, I was asking you earlier, in 2010, how many hours did it take you to report a significant percentage of results?
In 2010, in the evening of the election, I believe we had about 60% of transmissions in the same evening. And 24 hours later, we had already 90% of the results in the transparency server.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we'll know on day 2,
10.
we already have the results, the new president.
We all hope so, yes.
The next question is from social media again. JV Rufino will ask it.
Oh, okay. There's one question here from Viber. I may have been asked before, but perhaps the person missed it. Is there a strict time limit for each voter in the polling precinct?
No, that hasn't
Yeah.
been asked.
Wasn't asked yet. There's really no strict time limit for each voter. Again, that's why we're trying to increase voters' education. We're trying to support COMELEC in increasing voters' education because it matters that voters know what to do. Uh, During the mock elections, it ranges from 10 minutes, 15 minutes, to some voters taking much longer. There were reports that with the recent transmission readiness test wherein we got voters to, again, try and vote, there were some that took 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and that includes the process of selecting. That's why the tips on bringing your own código or list of candidates really helps a lot because you're not there taking up so much time just choosing the candidates. But as you can see here, the actual process of feeding the ballot and waiting for the voters' receipts takes only a few minutes, like 3 minutes, 1 minute at the most, 2 minutes. So it's that short once you get to the vote counting machine and feed your ballot. But the other parts of the voting process, especially shading, that can take long, and reviewing the voter's receipt, that can take long. So that's why also very important for voters to know voting time now has been extended. It starts at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. So please be considerate of the other voters and be considerate of the BEI and members and teachers as well na hindi na umabot sa gabi, na don't let them reach until darkness. Because for areas like Davao or Mindanao, if there's a power outage, we know that the vote counting machines will not turn off. It will continue to run. But we don't know how much light will be provided for each polling center, right? So again, out of consideration for the BEI members and teachers, let's try to finish early.
Okay, I'm glad that you mentioned. So the voting day ends at 5 p.m. How soon can the first results be posted?
5:01.
So the transparency server will
The
receive
reception of the results is basically
instantaneous.
instantaneous. Yeah, what happens is that after, as you saw in the process, after the closing of the vote, they will print the 8 copies. Just right after, let's say that it takes
Sure.
5 minutes to print those results, those ERs, they will connect the modem and transmit. So basically, just few minutes after, we will start receiving results. Now it's up to COMELEC when they start releasing those results. My guess is that they will wait until they have a certain percentage and not until they have just 2 precincts, no? But they will wait until they have a certain percentage of the results to release it to the media. But to be honest, that's a question for COMELEC.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? We are running into our 91st minute. We would like to maybe call it a day. Thank you. So it's been fun. It's more fun in the Philippines, right, Ellie?
I agree, it is.
Yeah. So
And
we have very
can
fun
I take
trust
this opportunity
issues.
because I know that there have been challenges with voters' education. We still need to really increase it and support COMELEC in increasing it. There are videos online. If you look at the hashtag Pilipinas, Pilipinas, but with a K, because ask. So Philippine Ask, Pilipinask, Pilipinas, and then with the K, Ask 2016. It's also on YouTube. You can see the common questions like what happens if there's a brownout, how long is the voting time. You have videos that are about 2 minutes, 1 minute 30 seconds. They're all on YouTube. And Smartmatic has also helped COMELEC come up with a new website, Pilipinas2016.com, which will have these videos also and will have other materials on the elections. We're trying to work on getting the voters' registration data precinct finder there so that, because of the problems with the COMELEC website, people can search for their right precincts for election day.
I'm glad you brought that up because I think we can be sure of one thing: as election day approaches, there will be more such baseless speculation. Uh, all these attempts to hack the unhackable Banco Central website, the rumors of mixed up receipts which turn out to be unsubstantiated. I think we will have more and more of these kinds of attempts precisely to condition perhaps people's minds. How should we fight that kind of mind conditioning?
For me, it's really the right information. This is one of the basic steps that you should take in that direction. Meaning, if you have a question, ask it and ask the right people. So if you already see a rumor about something like, for instance, voters' receipts not matching the ballots, instead of asking your office mate who doesn't know anything, who will probably Google something else and find something also equally dubious, then ask the right people. Ask Comelec, ask Smartmatic. That's why we encourage journalists like you, try it for yourself and see how it reads the ballots. Because again, I think what's worse than the false chismis or rumor is compounding it with another false explanation. It just makes the whole rumor even larger and worse.
What
but
is it-
at
what-
the end of the day, it instills confusion and fear among voters.
What is the fastest way to get in touch with you? Are you guys on Twitter? I mean,
Yes, I'm on Twitter. It's at Attorney Karen Jimeno, ATTY Karen KAREN Jimeno, JIMENO. I really take the time to also answer questions, especially if it's the technical aspect. I even pester them and call them. Even if I see someone asking me on Twitter, I ask them, Ellie, is it true, or what's the explanation for this? And I take the time to
how
respond.
about you, Ellie? Are you on?
I'm not a Twitter guy, sorry. But, right, Karen, she will ask me.
Okay. Yes. One.
So it's 10 days to go. Are the machines ready? Are you ready? Are we ready?
Yes, ma'am. We have 100% of the machines already configured in Santa Rosa. They have been turned over to Comelec. Comelec has a logistic provider that is already moving them to each one of their regional hubs, because in each province they have also a smaller warehouse. I read today in the news actually that 90% of those machines have been already deployed to those regional hubs, and they will, during the FTS period, deploy them to each one of the polling centers. Also, the ballots have been printed and verified 100%. So yes, we can have an election now if you want.
Yeah. I think you can tell from the eye bags. We're ready. We haven't been sleeping.
Sorry,
Okay.
it's not legal, I heard. I'm not a lawyer. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ellie Moreno, General Manager of Smartmatic Philippines. And thank you, Attorney Karen Jimeno, Head of Voter Education of Smartmatic Philippines. And also thank you to Attorney Migs Avila for helping us earlier with the live demo. This has been a very interesting, very instructive Meet Inquirer Multimedia Forum. On behalf of the Inquirer group of companies, we'd like to thank our multiple audiences on Facebook, on YouTube, on INQUIRER.net, on the various platforms, on the various chat apps, on Twitter. Did I miss anything else? On the International Space Station, wherever you can get us. Thank you for joining us. This has been Smartmatic meets Inquirer Multimedia.
Thank you.
Thank you.